Regional Parks Management Plan. Just to let everybody know that there's a change with recommendation D. I have included the Regional Parks Portfolio Lead as well in regards to approve the final changes to the discussion paper. So, Councillor Fletcher, I hope you're okay with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, look, I'll move the item, and Councillor Fletcher, if you're okay again to second this particular item for discussion.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so open up for discussion, and Joe, if you could speak to it and also introduce the people. I made the mistake with Liz that I ended up saying all the people and the staff, so I'll leave that to you. Thank you.
I found my unmute button. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt, actually, could I hand over to you to do the introductions? Would that be appropriate?
Sure thing. Thank you, Joe. So in the call today, we've got myself, Matt Ward, from Service and Asset Planning, and my team, Joe Mackay, and we also have Rachel Keller, who's the Manager of Regional Parks, able to answer any questions after Joe has introduced the item.
Thank you, Matt. Through you, Mr. Chair. This report follows an initiation report to the committee in June, and then a workshop that we had on the contents of the discussion paper and the engagement approach in July. So today, we're seeking your approval to notify your intention to prepare a new management plan for the regional parks. This notification triggers a consultation period under the Reserves Act to seek suggestions from the community to inform our development of a draft plan. We are aware that many people in the community are very interested in engaging with this review, acknowledging their friends groups of various regional parks and other people who are deeply involved in regional parks in various ways who are very keen to participate. So today's decision will enable this engagement to start, which will be particularly welcomed by these people from around the 1st of September. Just one other thing to add before we open for questions on this. We did mention that we would provide a verbal update today regarding mana whenua engagement. So as reported, the Chair has written to all iwi chairs to invite them to be involved in the review, and the project team has followed this up with an approach to the Mana Whenua Kaitiaki Forum. We're seeking to find out whether the forum would like to facilitate a collective input from iwi into the review. So the forum was due to meet today, but regrettably it's had to be postponed. So we're not actually able to provide you with further information right now, but we will continue to seek to engage with the Kaitiaki Forum at the earliest opportunity. And then over the coming weeks also, we intend to follow up the Chair's invitation with meetings with individual iwi. So I'm happy to take any questions through the Chair.
No, thank you for that, Joe. So look, again, there's no questions in the sidebar and the chat. So,
Mr. Chair, sorry, I'm just jumping in.
Councillor,
I was too slow on the side chat, but I see there's some others that have popped up.
No, there's been nothing there. But Councillor Coombe, now that your mic's on, and then I've got two others. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry for jumping in there. I just thought I was about to miss my chance. Thanks for the report and the presentation. Could you just remind me at the workshop, I just asked about consideration of the domain being included in the regional plan, and can you just please remind me why that was excluded from the thinking? And is it going to be, if it goes through consultation and there's strong support through public consultation, is there still the potential for that to be looked at?
As I understand it, the regional parks that we have under the management plan are all the ones in the long-term plan Schedule 1 that are listed as regional parks. So the Auckland domain is listed separately within that, and it has quite a complex governance structure and arrangement with the local board as well. So at this stage, we're not proposing to bring it within the Regional Parks Management Plan. I don't know if any of the other staff would like to add to that.
It's just my question then, in terms of if it goes through the consultation, is there still opportunity to revisit that at the end of the consultation process? I mean, I'm not raising a big concern with the management of the domain at all, especially not under the leadership of Councillor Simpson. I just would like to understand whether it needs to even be considered as part of this process, if there's any value to that.
The consultation is really seeking suggestions on the parks that we're putting forward to be part of the management plan. So it's not really asking the question, should other parks come into this plan? So I would probably say no, it's not really a question within scope of this consultation.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Pippa. Councillor Fletcher and then Cooper.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, are you taking comments at the same time as questions, or just questions at this point?
No, both.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I really welcome the paper today, but I just want to remind councillors and members of the Independent Maori Statutory Board that the development of regional parks in Auckland hasn't developed in isolation. There's been a clear and deliberate strategy built around the vision and dedication of others, and clearly that work of legacy councils. And I mentioned in the last item that a lot of these parks, we have to thank the generosity of many individuals and organisations. So it's been good to hear from Joe the recognition of all the friends of groups and others who are being part of it. I know that during the June and the July meeting and workshop that we've had, I have laboured the point of having individual management plans for each of the parks. And the reason that I'm putting weighting on that is that I think we need to have a real clarity of purpose and ensure that any new management plan does capture that vision and defines the strategy with specific intention. So, you know, by being very clear in a brief about the importance of operational plans is actually really important to me. That said, there's some, you know, in the material that we've got there are some really fantastic questions when you're looking at individual regional parks, and I think that there are many challenges looking forward on the way in which we use them. But I just want to remind councillors that the love affair that Aucklanders have with regional parks has been largely responsible for the growing interest in volunteer restoration programs and ecological programs. So whatever we do in terms of the next chapter for regional parks needs to be very clear and very strategic in a directional sense. Joe, I wonder, because I don't know that everybody quite understands the background to the recommendation in and around Matakorea, that's Browns Island. Can you just background that again so that everybody is very clear on what its status is within the further consideration that we're going to bring for this review?
Yes, I was just wondering, Rachel, would you be able to answer that one?
I can pick that up, Joe, if you like.
Thank you, Matt.
So Matakorea, Browns Island previously was managed by the Department of Conservation, but owned by Auckland Council. And when It was managed by Department of Conservation within the treaty settlement legislation for the Inner Gulf Islands. Motukaria Browns Island was intended to be included within the combined management plan for those inner Hauraki Gulf Islands, and following the island being passed back to the Auckland Council, the committee at the time indicated that it was going to continue to honour that inclusion of the island within that management plan, but now that Motukaria is back as part of the regional parks network, it's appropriate that Motukaria be included within the next generation regional parks management plan. And the resolution in front of the committee today is just to tidy up revocation of that earlier committee's intention to include it within the Inner Gulf Management Plan and to instead include it within this review.
Thank you for that, Matt. The second thing that is of concern to me, there are so many needs. You know, the discussion that we have on a regular basis around things like freedom camping and parking, and the lack of toilets and facilities and that sort of infrastructure that we need with regional parks. All of that comes with some cost. Do you have a view at the moment? I think it's really important for us to have plans and that we have these strategies, but these come with funding implications. Do you have a comment at this stage on that particular dimension to the consultation that we're about to embark on?
A really important point that we need to make clear throughout this consultation, and we do say it in the discussion paper and we will reiterate it, is that this management plan is not a promise to fund anything in particular on parks, but it will help set priorities, and the funding priorities will happen through other processes such as the LTP and the annual budgeting and other processes like that. So I think it's more of a case of making sure we're quite clear that at this stage of the process, of our review process, that we don't get expectations up too high, but we also make it clear where those decisions are made. And then apart from that, moving further through the review as we create a draft plan, yes, costs is obviously something we're going to have to think about as we think about what goes into that plan, so that, again, the plan's place in respect to where it sits and the LTP can continue to be made clear, but also that it is deliverable. So we'll continue to work on the costs question as we move through the project.
Thank you, Jo. I hold the view, and I don't know whether it's a solo view, but when you're looking at sustainable models, there are examples where the natural environment can be used with a very light footprint, ecological footprint, but to generate. I mean, there's a discussion to be had within this document about what the role of concessions and leases might be going forward, the types of activities that can take place. And I'd like to know that there is a willingness within the officers giving consideration to this of the ways in which that we can actually generate without compromising on the public access to these beautiful spaces, or doing any environmental damage whatsoever. There are opportunities to generate funding mechanisms for going, in an operational sense going forward. Is that part of the consideration that you and the team will be looking at?
Yes, the discussion paper treats that topic reasonably lightly, but it is in there in the visitor experience section, and we are hoping to generate comments, ideas, suggestions in that space of funding options within parks. I guess we're not pushing it to the fore, but it is definitely relevant and is definitely within scope.
I'm encouraged by that, because I would hate to think in these difficult COVID times when funds are few, that we just rule out adding new infrastructure in, because I think that there are going to be other ways of being able to put them in place. So feel very encouraged by your response, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's been some great work done on this by the officers.
Totally agree, Christine, around the work that they have done. Councillor Cooper.
Kia ora, Mātua. Was just a question around the next steps. Will there will be hearings for the submissions on this plan?
There will be. It is prescribed under the Reserves Act, but that will be end of next year in our timeline, all going well. So it's not a next step, it's a future step after we actually have a draft plan, get the written comments, and then after that hold hearings. So yes, eventually.
Eventually. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing that feedback as well, Joe. I just was going to say that I don't have any further councillors in Independent Māori Statutory Board wanting to ask questions or comments. So, look, it's been moved by myself and Councillor Fletcher. So I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
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 Yeah, good. I've heard at least 23. And all those against? Thank you. So look, again, Joe, just to you and the staff, thank you so much for the mahi that you guys have done with this. Thank you. I'll just move
Sure.
on
Thank you very much
to...
to the Chair and councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Rachel.